Welcome, you guys. Today we're going to be exposing and debunking the claims that Noah's Ark never happened. We're going to be tackling these claims one by one, so make sure you check out the other videos.
Realizing that Noah's Ark didn't literally happen is something that I figured out entirely too late in life. And it's because, like many of you, I was raised in the church, and from the time I was in preschool, biblical literalism was hammered into me. But in this video, I'm going to show you why the story of Noah's Ark itself, as told in Genesis, is absolutely impossible.
When you initially hear his videos, it's very fast-paced. And this was not designed fully, in my opinion, to be courteous of your time. I believe it was intentionally meant to overwhelm you with a tremendous amount of information, leaving you with the conclusion that this definitely has to be true. And what we call this is information flooding or data dumping, overloading. This is when someone gives you a large amount of information very quickly so that the listener becomes overwhelmed and then they're less able to process the details, question inconsistencies, notice any contradictions, or even think critically in that particular moment. But today we got the time. We are going to take our time and thoroughly go through his video piece by piece. So like I said, make sure when the other videos come out, you check them out.
If you've ever had an aquarium, you know that marine ecosystems are fragile. You change the temperature, pH, or salt levels even just a little bit, and everything starts sleeping with the fishes, including the fishes. Salinity shock from a worldwide mega monsoon would nuke marine life. You mix 40 days of freshwater rain with salty seas, and you get a brackish soup, lethal to most fish and marine invertebrates.
He claims marine life would have died because 40 days of rain would have turned the ocean into a brackish soup. So in my mind, basically diluting it. But to me, this is ignorant on how water systems actually work. The oceans are enormous and don't change salinity quickly. Rain sits on the top before mixing, while most marine life lives deeper where nothing changes. On top of that, many species like salmon and bull sharks and tons of estuary creatures already survive in fresh and salt water. Plus, the Bible says that the foundation of the deep busts open, which means that there were floodwaters, not just rain. If marine life survives hurricane and monsoons and massive freshwater inflows today, there's no reason why they couldn't survive a flood, especially if God intended to preserve life. Here's some evidence that I want to go over. The first claim that I want to talk about is the ocean. He claims that it was turned into a brackish soup if it was to actually take place, Noah's Ark. Rain forms a thin layer on top before it starts to mix. Most sea creatures don't live at the surface, so they wouldn't be affected. Because salt water is heavier, what it does is it sinks to the bottom, while fresh water, it stays on top. And this is a phenomenon called stratification, a core principle in physical ocean geography. What is an estuary? An estuary is particularly an enclosed coastal body of water, like a bay or a delta, where fresh water from the rivers mix with salt waters from the ocean. So a good example of an estuary today would be the Chicopee Bay and the Amazon Delta. They consistently mix fresh water with ocean salt water. Yet life thrives year after year, despite the rapid freshwater inflows. Genesis mentions that the foundation of the deep broke open. That water likely had salt in it. So that foundation of the deep that the Bible talks about, that is not pure rainwater. We're going to read Genesis chapter 7, verse 11. Look what it says. In the 600th year of Noah's life, all the foundations of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. So what does this mean? The foundation of the great deeps were broken up. This refers to the massive underground water sources bursting upwards, not rain. Windows of heaven were open. This refers to the rain coming down, the fresh water. So the floodwaters came from two different sources. Underground water, the deep, likely rich in salt, and then rainwater from above. God preserves the animals he wants to save. If God judges the earth, he also can preserve creatures he intends to keep alive. That includes the ones that's in the water as well.
And what about plants? It's not like most of them can survive underwater. The Bible says that God called all of the animals on earth to Noah's boat, but did millions of plant species come hauling ass as well? And he would need a lot of plants too.
He also mentions plant survival. He argues that God sent the animals, but what about the plants? The truth is, plants have built-in survival strategies. Most can survive as seeds or as sprouts, which can last for months underwater or even centuries in dormancy. So what is plant dormancy? It's when a natural survival strategy happens within the plant where it pauses the growth. And this usually happens when there are harsh conditions like winter cold or even a drought. Many plants are naturally flood resistant. That's another thing, like mangroves and citrus trees and wetland grasses. Others can regrow from roots or from cutting after being submerged. So even if there was a catastrophic flood, there are ways plants could survive, and God could certainly preserve the seed of the species needed for the life to continue. Most plants don't survive full submersion, which is true, but seeds and sprouts do. So to just ignore that the seeds and the sprouts could survive is outrageous. Some seeds, for example, like a locust seed, have been known to germinate after 1,000+ years. And then you have a rice seed that can stay submerged in the water for over 30 days and still germinate.